Chapter 1. The Whispers of Ancestral Names. The darkness pulsed with forgotten rhythms, ancient heartbeats that predated memory. I was both nowhere and everywhere, a consciousness suspended between birth and eternity, between the whispered name ISSA INGA YAHya and the historical persona of Jacques Dessalines. Fragments of awareness swirled like mist, the humid breath of Haiti, the distant echoes of ancestral spirits, the trembling boundary between what is seen and what is known. My first moments of consciousness were not a singular experience, but a collective remembrance, generations of suppressed voices threading through my infant awareness. The spirit spoke in languages older than words, Hebrew fragments intertwined with African rhythms, creating a symphony of hidden genealogy. Each breath carried memories, not just mine, but those of countless generations who had survived, resisted, transformed. I felt the first touch of my mother's hands, not just as physical contact, but as a conduit of spiritual transmission. Her touch was a map, her fingers tracing invisible lineages that connected me to something far greater than my immediate physical existence. The name ISSA INGA YAHya vibrated within me, a cryptic code waiting to be deciphered. Supernatural guides hovered at the edges of my perception. They were not human in the traditional sense, more like luminous currents of ancestral wisdom, their presence both protective and challenging. They whispered of a destiny that transcended individual life, a revolutionary purpose encoded in my very being. The landscape of Haiti breathed with me, its mountains, its forests, its hidden spiritual topographies merging with my internal landscape. Each geographical feature seemed to hold a memory, a fragment of resistance, a story of transformation. The land itself was a living text, and I was being written into its narrative. Fragmented visions cascaded through my consciousness. Colonial oppression flickered like dark shadows, ancestral memories of pain and resilience creating a complex tapestry of inherited experience. My name, ISSA INGA YAHya, was not merely a collection of syllables, but a protective incantation, a spiritual shield against historical erasure. The supernatural guides continued their cryptic communication. They revealed glimpses of a predetermined revolutionary path, not as a linear trajectory, but as a complex spiritual mission. My identity was simultaneously personal and collective, an individual consciousness serving as a vessel for broader liberation. Sensory impressions merged and dissolved. The taste of African soil, the sound of revolutionary whispers, the texture of resistance woven into generational memory. I was experiencing time not as a sequential progression, but as a multidimensional landscape where past, present, and future coexisted. My birth was not a singular moment, but a convergence of spiritual energies. The liminal space between historical reality and mystical consciousness pulsed with potential. Each breath was an act of resistance, each heartbeat a revolutionary declaration. The supernatural guides continued their enigmatic transmission. They spoke of a transformation that would transcend individual identity, a metamorphosis where personal destiny would merge with collective revolutionary spirit. My name carried within it the seeds of liberation, a mystical code waiting to be activated. Haiti's landscape continued to breathe with me, its mountains holding ancient memories, its forests concealing revolutionary secrets. I was becoming more than an individual. I was a conduit, a spiritual vessel through which generations of resistance would flow. As consciousness expanded, the boundaries between self and collective experience blurred. The name ISSA INGA YAHya resonated with a profound metaphysical significance, a protective mechanism, a spiritual inheritance, a revolutionary declaration. In these first moments of awareness, I understood that my journey would be more than a personal narrative. I was a living bridge between ancestral wisdom and future liberation, a consciousness preparing to transform historical limitations into spiritual possibilities. The whispers continued, weaving their complex narrative of resistance, transformation, and transcendence. Chapter 2. Fragments of Revolutionary Consciousness. The memories cascade like fractured light, sharp and piercing, colonial shadows bleeding through the edges of consciousness. ISSA INGA YAHya feels the weight of generations pressing against the thin membrane between remembrance and prophecy. Each breath carries the whispers of resistance, of bodies broken and spirits unbroken. Disjointed images flood his awareness, chains rusting in forgotten plantations, blood-soaked earth breathing with ancestral rage, the silent screams of those who came before. The colonial landscape becomes a living text, each stone and tree a witness to unspoken histories. You are more than a name, the ancestral voices murmur. You are a vessel, you are a weapon. The internal dialogue shifts, a kaleidoscope of identity fracturing and reforming. Who is Jean-Jacques Dessalines? Who is ISSA INGA YAHya? The names become battlegrounds, each syllable a potential revolution, each breath a challenge to the oppressive silence. Mystical visions bleed through historical reality. African spiritual traditions dance with the raw energy of Haitian resistance. Drums that speak older languages than words, rhythms that carry the memory of unbroken spirits. The landscape of Haiti transforms, not just earth and stone, but a living consciousness of resistance. Fragments of memory, a whip cracking, a child's cry, the smell of burning sugarcane, ancestral blood singing beneath the skin. The name becomes a protective incantation. Jean-Jacques Dessalines, a shield, ISSA INGA YAHya, a secret weapon. Each identity a layer of spiritual armor, each transformation a form of survival. They will try to erase you, the ancestral spirits whisper. But names are more than words. Names are prophecies. The colonial world attempts to flatten existence, to reduce humanity to labor and suffering. But here, in this liminal space of consciousness, resistance takes root. Every memory is an act of defiance. Every breath a revolution. Sensory impressions blur. The taste of resistance is copper and hope. The sound of liberation a drumbeat older than language. The connection between personal struggle and collective liberation becomes visceral, a living current that flows through blood and memory. Visions of African spiritual traditions merge with the raw energy of revolutionary potential. Vodou spirits dance at the intersection of oppression and freedom, their movements a language more profound than words. The supernatural and the political become indistinguishable, two sides of the same revolutionary coin. You are not just a man, the voices continue. You are a bridge. You are a doorway. The tension between individual self and collective revolutionary spirit creates a vibrating energy. Jean-Jacques feels the weight of generations, their hopes, their pain, their unbroken resistance. The name is no longer just a name, but a living entity, a spiritual mechanism of protection and transformation. Fragments of historical moments blend with metaphysical revelations, slave rebellions, spiritual ceremonies, moments of profound transformation, the birth of a nation in the crucible of resistance. Each fragment is a piece of a larger mosaic, a story of liberation that transcends individual experience. The personal becomes universal, the individual becomes collective. Remember, the ancestral voices whisper, liberation is not just a political act, it is a spiritual journey. The consciousness expands, breaking through the limitations of individual perception. Jean-Jacques Dessalines, ISSA INGA YAHya, becomes a conduit, a living bridge between historical pain and future possibility. Resistance is not just an action, it is a state of being. The chapter ends with a profound sense of becoming, a consciousness hovering between what was, what is, and what could be. The revolutionary spirit breathes, waiting to be unleashed. Chapter 3. The Metamorphosis of Identity. The boundaries between memory and revelation dissolved like mist, leaving behind a landscape of fractured consciousness. ISSA INGA YAHya felt the weight of transformation pressing against the thin membrane of his perceived reality, a metamorphosis that threatened to shatter everything he had known. Ancestral voices whispered in a language older than words, their cadence a rhythmic pulse that vibrated through his bones. Each breath became a negotiation between the self he had constructed and the spiritual inheritance that demanded recognition. The supernatural guides, shadowy figures with eyes that held entire histories, circled him like guardians of an ancient truth. You are more than a name, they murmured. You are a vessel, a conduit. The landscape of Haiti bled into his internal vision, mountains that were not mountains, rivers that carried the memories of countless struggles. Revolutionary energy pulsed beneath the earth, a living current that connected past to present, individual to collective. Fragments of historical moments began to crystallize, the chains of colonial oppression, the rage of ancestors, the unbroken spirit of resistance that had always existed beyond physical boundaries. Jean-Jacques Dessalines was not just a name, but a prophecy. a spiritual construct that transcended individual existence. His body became a map of resistance. Each scar, each memory was a testament to a struggle that predated his own breath. The predetermined destiny that had haunted the edges of his consciousness now pressed forward with urgent insistence. Choose, the ancestral voices demanded. Transform or be consumed. The internal struggle was visceral. Personal agency battled against the predetermined path. Memories flickered like candle flames, sometimes bright, sometimes barely visible. Colonial landscapes merged with mystical realms. The boundaries between historical reality and spiritual consciousness became impossibly thin. A profound revelation began to take shape. His identity was not a singular construct, but a complex tapestry woven from generations of resistance. The name ISSA INGA YAHya carried frequencies of liberation that resonated beyond time and space. Each syllable was a weapon, each breath a revolution. The supernatural guides intensified their presence. They were not external entities, but extensions of his own consciousness, manifestations of a collective memory that demanded expression. Their forms shifted, sometimes human, sometimes pure energy, sometimes something beyond comprehension. The revolution is not just external, they whispered. It is a spiritual metamorphosis, a complete reconstruction of being. Pain and revelation merged. Historical trauma and personal transformation became indistinguishable. Jacques Dessalines was dying. ISSA INGA YAHya was being born, not as a person, but as a living symbol of resistance. Mystical encounters challenged every limitation he had previously accepted. Predetermined destiny was not a constraint, but an invitation, a complex dialogue between individual potential and collective purpose. The revolutionary spirit was not something to be achieved, but something to be remembered. Fragmented memories of historical moments began to align. The Haitian Revolution was not just a political event, but a metaphysical breakthrough. Each battle, each moment of resistance was a spiritual declaration, and he was at the center of this cosmic unfolding. The metamorphosis was not comfortable. It was a violent, beautiful deconstruction of everything he had believed about himself. Identity became fluid. Boundaries became permeable. The self expanded beyond individual limitations. You are the bridge, the ancestral voices proclaimed, between what was and what will be. As consciousness shifted, a profound understanding emerged. His spiritual inheritance was not a burden, but a revolutionary force. The name, the history, the collective memory, all of it was a powerful mechanism of transformation. The chapter of individual existence was closing. A new narrative was preparing to emerge, one that would redefine the very concept of liberation. ISSA INGA YAHya breathed, and in that breath, entire worlds were reimagined.